Are you making the same mistakes as I did learning guitar and wondering just how on earth can I make this any easier, not waste any limited practice time you've got? And in this video, I'll show you the 5 biggest mistakes that I have made over 27 years of guitar playing, from beginner to pro, that I just wish I knew before. And just by avoiding these mistakes and knowing the solutions, you can save yourself a lot of time, pain, and effort. And by the way, I'm Dean, a professional guitarist and teacher. And if you stick around to the end, I'll share this massively helpful bonus tip that has significantly improved my guitar playing and many of my students. The first mistake could put anyone off learning guitar, and as a young beginner, I was clueless. Now come here. I really want you to pay attention to this, as I think you might be making the same mistake. To highlight this point, look at these 2 identical handsome gardeners. They both have the same hedge trimmers, but which trimmer do you think will trim the hedge better? A or B? Now if you answered, well, they're exactly the same, you're right. But here's the twist. Gardener A didn't realise his trimmer was older, and therefore the blades would have been used, and therefore more blunt. And also his battery was almost dead. So this means it just wasn't performing to its optimal level. When I first started guitar, just like a lot of people, they just get any guitar they can. Mine was this great big Dreadnought. Bigger is better, right?
That's what she said!
It was so uncomfortable. The body was so big, big strings that were sky high from the fretboard. I just thought this was the norm, and this is what most guitars felt like to play. And even now, many players might just look at 2 identical guitars and think they are the same. But until you play both from side to side, you will actually start to realise one feels different to play than the other. But why is this? Some of it has to do with the build, the connection between different woods, the pickups. But I think the most important thing, which is underlooked by a lot of players, is the guitar setup. And this is what I didn't realise. A well set up guitar from a professional will make your guitar play so much better. It will feel much easier to play. And here's a tip for the advancing beginner intermediate player. Remember this. Now, generally speaking, a cheaper guitar with a great setup will outperform a more expensive guitar with a bad setup. A bit like a well-serviced hedge trimmer. Now for the next mistake, unfortunately, we've got to go back to that garden to see those handsome chaps again. So we're doing a simple task of cutting through a piece of wood with a handsaw. But who is doing a better job? A is pushing much harder, resulting in tense arms, bending the blade, which makes for a messy finish. B, on the other hand, is letting the saw do the work, gliding it with steady, even pressure. The blade glides smoothly through the wood, making clean, precise cuts. Now, do you feel tension in your arms when you're playing? You're not relaxed? Sometimes when you're fretting chords, it can sound out of tune. Well, that's probably because you're pushing way too hard than you need to. And check this out. Here I'm playing a chord using optimal finger pressure. Now look what happens when I over push. Yeah, it goes out of tune. Doesn't sound great. Are you pushing too hard? How can we test this? And what can we do about it? Well, I have a test for you, so go and grab your guitar. Before that, come here. It's really important when you're doing this exercise to go slow and not hard. Step 1. Rest the finger on the string without any pressure and pluck the note so it sounds muted. Slowly start to apply pressure whilst plucking the note. Keep going until you get a buzzing sound. Keep going, then when it sounds clear, stop. Don't go any further. Now, how does that feel? You might feel a slight bit of tension in the hand as you're trying to not over push. That's perfectly normal. It's just knowing and reprogramming your finger to apply that amount. If you do this with all fingers in different frets, different positions, after some time and constantly just been thinking about this, you will start to feel like you're gliding through the fretboard and everything will feel much easier to play. I wish I knew this before. After addressing mistakes 1 and 2, I came to realise that mistake number 3 was the most critical to rectify. What's even more frustrating, we learned this lesson when we were babies. More on that shortly. I recall a moment during my time at ACM, a music college in Guildford, UK, when the late Eric Roche was teaching us ear training. He was an amazing human being and teacher, but he was strict. He singled out a student in the front row and asked him to play Happy Birthday. The student confessed he didn't actually know how to play it, but Eric challenged him to work it out there and then in front of everyone. The poor chap froze and tried to figure out the first few notes, and then he couldn't do any more. I remember this feeling inside of me just completely petrified that Eric's going to pick on me next because I had never attempted to learn Happy Birthday by ear either. Despite being at this high level music college, I had lacked this fundamental skill. It's daft to consider this, but how do we learn to speak? We listen to sounds around us and try to replicate them. We stumble and fail repeatedly, but eventually we produce a sound that someone else will understand. And as a parent of 2 children, I have witnessed firsthand the frustration of trying to speak for the first time. I personally didn't learn music like my kids learnt to talk. Instead, I heavily relied on tabs from books, tabs from my guitar teacher, and neglected to train my ears to figure something out. This weakness became apparent at music college. Through my journey of improving my ear, I've discovered a common mistake that many people make when starting ear training. They jump into complex pieces, blame their ears, and just give up. Now, if you'd like a list of songs and melodies that are actually quite easy to work out, click on the link in the description below. And this is a great starting point to train your ear. It takes time and effort, and it's definitely a big mistake that I wish I started much sooner. This segues nicely into my next major mistake that I think you might be making too. Now, if you haven't followed this channel before, I'm basically an indie rock alternate guitar nut. But in my pre-college days, I was in bands writing and performing that style of music, and it was great. However, things needed to change for me as a guitar player when something embarrassing happened to me at college. I did a session for a band and we recorded a version of Pencil Full of Lead by Pallavicini. But if you don't know that song, it's basically an up-tempo pop tune with this blues progression underneath it. So I got all the rhythm sections down, the brass did some solos, and I thought basically that was the end of the session. But then they asked me to play a solo. I tried all my rock, indie inspired licks and nothing was working, and basically I just fell apart. Things had to change so this didn't happen again. I wish I knew the fundamentals of music, which is the blues. The blues isn't everything, and really, everyone should learn it. You don't have to be the next Jimi Hendrix or Joe Bonamassa or Stevie Ray Vaughan, but basically you just want to be able to play and understand the form. So as soon as I went to ACM, I was forced to learn so many different styles of music, from Tower of Power to Otis Redding, to Robin Ford to Metallica. Basically dip my toes into loads of different music. You are what you eat, so venture into different styles and genres. The pathway is endless and it's bags of fun. Now, just before I give you that extra bonus tip that I promised at the start, I have one more mistake that I need to share with you. During music college was a time where I practiced the most. I had the most amount of time. Now with kids, that time has somewhat disappeared. But I remember picking up a guitar magazine which had a Steve Vai 10-hour-a-day workout. I thought, damn, if I do this, I'll be the next biggest thing. I practiced everything as it was laid out in the magazine. Technique for an hour, chords for an hour, scales for an hour, sight reading, ear training, improvisation, etc. Did this for about 6 to 8 weeks, and although my playing did improve massively, I did question, why am I learning this? Why am I learning all these weird modes? Why am I sight reading? There is so much to learn on guitar, and at that time I was grateful that I had all that time to dabble in different things. But if I was you, I would always ask this: why are you learning the thing you're trying to learn? With all the content out there, all the tutorials and lessons, I think it's even easier to fall into this trap. Everyone is fighting for attention and giving false claims that it's going to take 5 minutes to do this, 5 minutes to do that. The hard truth is, learning guitar takes a lot of time. And if you're going down the wrong path and learning things that you don't really need to know to get to where you want to be, then really you're just wasting more and more time. Think about what you want to achieve, what the next checkpoint looks like, what you need to learn to get to that next checkpoint, and then just learn that. Enjoy the process, enjoy music, and love the guitar. Now, do you remember at the start of the video when I said about I'll share this massively helpful bonus tip? Well, in this video right here, I'll walk through a game changer that has revolutionized my guitar playing. Go and click on that right now and I'll see you over there. Remember to discover, learn, and create something inspiring today.